Ladies and gentlemen, the BCG is committed to the Bradbury pound. What I'm going to say does not contradict this. Any trading system I suggest will complement and work with the Bradbury and the aims of the BCG. I've been involved with a lot of research with friends, and what we originally discovered is that all the exchange rates of every country of the world are massively distorted. And when we made these calculations, that we found that we were exchanging with China, this country was exchanging with China on a ratio of 1 to 50. Which meant that one of our cars would go to China and we would get 50 cars back. And what we discovered is that what people call as globalization is not the same as free trade. Globalization is a completely distorted, a completely artificial system, which is based on these currencies being absolutely out of sync. What should happen, and in fact I heard only recently that China agrees with this, that there is a need to measure money. What we've done is invested a master currency, we call it the MH, it stands for man hour. And what this master currency is, one MH unit is average human productivity at the lowest level of skills. So that is 1 hour of work at the average productivity of the lowest level of skill. And that is what we call our MH. Now, in the 1800s, where there was no inflation, no deflation, what was happening? That we were working with gold. There were pounds, but there was also gold. Now this gold acted as a kind of measure, even though gold lost half of its value from 1870 to 1900, but basically it was a measure. Now what we could do is use the MH and use it with the Bradbury. So there's no contradiction. We can use the MH, we can use this measure, this master currency, actually with the Bradbury. Because as I can see it, and on this document which I've given out today, it actually mentions the Bradbury. The BCG are committed to the Bradbury, but the whole point is currencies can move about and be valued in different ways. But if it was aligned to the MH, it would be absolutely defined and absolutely measured. Also, in this system, which I've been working with for a long time, what we need to do, and it can be done easily, is to increase wages massively. I'm not going to go into it. I've actually sent people documents through the internet, and so they can see exactly how we would do this. And the advantage of this, at the moment, a lot of people can't buy houses, but if they were earning a lot more, then mortgages would become absolutely affordable and people could start buying houses. Also, using this MH measure, we could eliminate inflation completely by using this MH, in addition to the Bradbury pound. Also, in this system, and in a lot of systems which are advocated and so forth, there would be no interest on borrowing. Also, the value of savings will be protected. If we had a bank in 1969 and you'd invested £1, it would only be worth 2.4 pence. Whereas if you'd have invested in our bank, if we'd have had one in 1969 and you withdrew that £1 out, you would receive £24. So this is protecting the value of your savings. And also, all the money lent will be backed by existing assets. So your assets, your houses, your property and so forth, and also the goods you make in factories and so forth, that would back the currency. It would not be currency created, by thin air or whatever means. It would all be backed by actual assets. What we wish to do is create a new trading system. We would use a second currency. And once again, the second currency could be called a local Bradbury. Obviously, the Bradbury would be pound sterling, but we would create a local Bradbury. So people using the second currency will be only able to buy goods in the circle of suppliers. Now, what we value at this very, very moment, the Bradbury, this MH, we have actually precisely measured it as about £15. So it'd be like a minimum wage of £15 an hour. So what would happen, £7.50 of it would be you would be given it in Bradbury sterling pounds, and you would get £7.50 put into a bank account. You would be given a book and you'll be able to write out cheques and actually spend that money. But the whole point is, with these cheques, you won't be able to buy Chinese goods or foreign goods. You would only be able to use it with people in the scheme. And most of these people, or a lot of these people, would be local people. You could actually produce, or 50% of an economy could be produced locally if you went about it. But obviously, if you can't buy Chinese goods, then you can't buy them. People will receive, 50% in the second currency. Buy locally. So what would happen? Wages would be significantly increased. And obviously, if your wages have been increased, you can spend more. So therefore, you could buy more local goods, and it would create a lot more work. In other words, you could double the amount of money in the economy. Now, you may think, well, is it all going to be work? How can you pay £15 an hour? But what would happen is that it would be an enclosed economy. So it would all measure out, and we've got all the books and the information. We've got about 20 books which are all written on how it all would work. We've got one book of 400 pages which it's got all the figures and everything completely number crunched. Now, in 3 years' time, 40% of the population will be in this country over 65, which is a hell of a lot of people. And also, an interesting thing, there are pensioners groups in every town. You will find that they're all linked up to a national pension organisation. So it's all highly organised with pensioners. But if you think about it, old people can be used to train up the young, help start new businesses, inspect work, and many, many other jobs. Also, because of the pensions may be inadequate, it gives an opportunity for pensioners to earn a little more money, which I'm sure they would be grateful of. So it is a massive resource, all these old people in all of the communities, which actually could be used by a scheme like this. And what you've got to remember, Brexit is moving on, and we actually don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if the EU are going to do with us what they did to Greece. I mean, we don't know. But if you've got an alternative system, it's some sort of guarantee. I mean, to what is going on. We don't know how all that is going to pan out and what they're going to do to us. And I was reading today that Land Rover, they're not going to build a new advanced factory in this country, they're going to build it in Austria. So there's no loyalty with a lot of these companies. So what are the negatives? And there really, really are negatives, because lots and lots of people have actually tried to start up these alternative currency schemes, or whatever, your cryptocurrency and so forth. And there's been Let's, and there's been the Bristol pound, and somebody's trying to create the Liverpool pound and so forth. But
Gyro.
There are lots. There are, you know, it's very, very difficult to do. So the first thing, it's very hard to get existing businesses on board, because obviously they're using sterling, they're using cash and so forth, and they're not interested. As long as they're getting money and people are paying in sterling and they're surviving, they're not interested in joining any scheme. And also, what I've found is that even people on benefits can be so comfortable that they are not prepared to take any risks. Even people on benefits, you try and persuade them to come into a scheme and you can't. You know, they will give you any excuse under the sun. I've nothing against them, but the whole point is they're not interested, because they're probably having a great time as it is. Also, what I've found is that there are a very few people with an entrepreneurial background. You know, once upon a time, 100 years ago, lots of people in my own family, and probably everybody's family, own their own small businesses or own shops or small companies and so forth. But nobody, hardly anybody, is an entrepreneur anymore. The other thing is that people don't have capital. You know, nobody's got any money when you talk to people. Now also, I have sent a lot of people through the internet lots and lots of schemes, historical schemes and so forth. And I've also sent a scheme which I'm involved in myself, which is called NITEC. But to start a scheme like that, you would need 100,000 people to actually join. Now, if you can remember, in about 2000, all the Argentinian banks all closed. And what happened? All these schemes started up, and there were lots of schemes that were really successful. Everybody joined, you know, and also then when there was all the trouble in Greece, you know, these schemes multiplied, and also in the 1930s, all sorts of schemes happened in Switzerland and Austria and Germany and so forth. So in times of distress, you know, people don't, you know, think about it, they actually do it. There's no other choice. So the final point is, to finish off, is that our economy does not work. It's as simple as that. also that our industries, you know, when I was young, all the time people used to say, we are the workshop of the world. Many of our industries have been decimated. I was talking to a friend who was the only economist working at the Trade and Industry Department in Manchester. There were all these people working there, but nobody was qualified and nobody knew anything. He was the only economist. When Gordon Brown and Mandelson, you know, came up north, he used to take them round to these factories. Now, when I said to him, only the other day, I said, these industries had been wiped out, he absolutely took me to task. And he said that, oh, the Northwest is very successful, we're producing tons of goods, technology, you know, is fantastic. And he said, you are absolutely wrong. And he's convinced me to a certain point that we are doing quite well in the Northwest. In fact, we're the most productive part of the country, you know, completely on manufacturing goods. And there is a tremendous lot going on, which I wasn't even aware of. But he goes around to all these companies and he sort of told me. So anyway, that's that. Also, if people are earning the minimum wage, only £7.50 or something like that, what is happening, people are not paying any tax or hardly any tax. They're having all these subsidies. So this is probably one of the reasons. If they were paid at least £15 an hour, and we're talking about the lowest skilled people, what about the higher skilled people who would get more? There would be a hell of a lot of tax revenue. So, which would, you know, help communities a lot more. So what's happened is, what they've been doing, as everybody's probably now aware, there's been creation of money by our banks. I don't know if anybody watches Max Kaiser, but only last night he said in 2008 in America, what happened? They created 15 trillion dollars worth of money, you know, just overnight. And he said, I don't think there's going to be a crash there because they can create another 15 trillion dollars worth of money. And he said, you know, the same applies here. They can create, and this is true, I mean, I've read it in all sorts of places, they can create as much as they want. But what's been happening is that I went to a conference only a couple of weeks ago and I was told that in all these towns what's happening is that foreigners are buying loads of the property, especially in Blackpool. All the cheap property is being bought, you know, by foreigners as well as you know, buy-to-let landlords. So what's happening, and also because they've been creating this money but out of thin air, that all the prices are inflated, and people, you know, can't afford to get on the property ladder, which is where the Community of Bill of Rights could come in. And in fact, what could happen, that foreign people could be stopped investing in your local town. And what would happen? You know, maybe house prices could come crashing down if, you know, all these people were not allowed, people out of town, you know, buying properties and so forth.
Yep.
I know it's not fun, but...
It's not fun for anyone who's got a large mortgage on a property that's crashing.
Well, no, this is true. But all I'm doing is just flagging up, you know, what this Community Bill of Rights could do. And the last point I would like to make is, according to my friend who worked at the Department of Trade and Industry, unemployment is actually 20%. So all the time at the moment you're being told, oh, you know, there's hardly anybody unemployed and so forth. We need all these people coming into the country to do all the jobs. There is actually 20% unemployed. So we are being conned. And also, I am sure you know, on the TV they were talking about picking strawberries. Well, I see no reason why the local population, and if they were paid properly, I'm sure they would all be out on the fields. You know, I don't see any problem. So what I'm saying is that it's the hardest thing to do, I can assure you. I've been involved with NITEC for quite a lot of time. It's so impossible to actually start these schemes. But if this Brexit is coming along, and if it goes wrong, it may be that everybody floods in to it. So all I'm letting you know, there's not only NITEC, there's dozens and dozens. In fact, if you go on the internet, there are literally tens of thousands of small schemes which are going on in countries all over the world. Some of them are successful. In fact, there is one called WIA Bank in Switzerland, and I've actually sent a paper on it, and it is they are trading in billions of Swiss francs. There are 90,000 businesses involved and thousands of people. There's also a cooperative in northern Spain which has been going since about 1948, and there's about 60,000 workers, and they're producing parts for motor cars, they're producing all sorts of things. In other words, there are examples, exemplars which one could look at and so forth and learn, and actually maybe bring people in from these you know, things which are going on. But all I'm doing is actually flagging this up as a possibility. So thank you very much for listening. Any questions?
Is it a bit like the Bitcoin?
Well,
I've heard of a crypto.
yeah, well, a lot of people are calling things cryptocurrencies, but what you've got to realise, there is a massive difference. The whole idea of Bitcoin is that people buy a Bitcoin and they're going to hope it's going to double its value or treble its value and everything like that. In other words, it's people gambling. And what we say, you've got commodities, and it's governed by demand and supply. So gold can go up, it can come down. But what we say, a currency should be absolutely defined, it should be measured, it should not move about. And that is actually what the Chinese believe and, you know, have recently said. These currencies should not be going up and down, you know, like Bitcoin. And actually people... also that, you know, what... I listen to this program called Max Kaiser, and he's talking about Bitcoin all the time. But you never hear of anything traded. You don't hear about goods being traded or what have you.
It's the black market they're trading.
Well, yes.
It's got the banks out. It's got,
oh yes,
it's
yeah.
got any possibility of underhandedness, you know.
Oh yeah. Well,
what can you buy with it?
I don't. I'm not clever.
Well,
That's the question.
Sounds good.
I've asked people, and
Go and buy
as
it.
far as I know, there is, you know, there's not a lot of trading going on. I may be completely wrong. Any more questions? Yeah.
Back in the early 1900s,
Yeah.
the British economy crashed, if you weren't aware of that. What happened was, local communities at local level, you had the local fire brigade, local charities, local investment groups, insurance groups, local authorities, factories, names that were trustworthy locally, started to produce what's called copper rounds. And if you've never heard these, it's fascinating something.
No.
You go online on eBay, they're collectible, highly collectible, these things. They're a couple of pence each, you know, a couple of quid each, you know. You can see these things. It's because the value of copper was guaranteed. And to stand the authenticity of the copper, so to have the fire brigade stamp on it, whatever, you know. And people don't talk, I almost wonder why people don't talk about that, because the local level, it's just a token, it's not currency, it's just a token. Which is an interesting thing, bringing to the table to look at that, the copper rounds, because they've got intrinsic value in the value of the copper.
Well, there's actually a person doing that in Yorkshire, and his name is Navid. He comes to New Horizons and often, and he's got some sort of scheme going, and what they're doing, they've got pieces of silver. So what they're doing is exchanging using this silver and everything like that. The thing about silver and gold is that, you know, as I said, they can actually fluctuate in value at the moment.
It's
No,
manipulated.
it's
Yeah.
manipulated.
Yeah,
It's
it's
never
manipulated.
changed their value.
It's always been gold backed. Everything has been gold or silver, but it is being manipulated. At
That's
the
why
moment.
Gordon Brown got rid of our gold reserves in order to manipulate it.
Right.
Working for the city.
Right. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you.